a very precious subject tonight, and it's how Jesus disciples his disciples. And if I think about the churches, I think, and I would think about like what is our one of the greatest needs in the churches, and I would say it's this matter of discipling or shepherding, or where an older or more experienced person can take a new Christian kind of under their wing, and then take them through the steps to grow in service and in knowing the Lord. And so we're going to look at how Jesus did that. And one of the amazing things to me, even going through this, is just to see how Jesus really like lowered himself to be at people's level, Peter's level. And then he wasn't here just to say some words and give some teachings, and but he really put himself in the lives of those around him, and shepherded them. He's the good shepherd, and he shepherded them. He commands them to disciple, but he also discipled his disciples. And if I look at a growing church, they need this discipling. If I look at a shrinking church, they need the discipling. If I look at a stable, stationary church, they need the discipling. And I think we all need to think about like, how can we do this and help other people in their walk? And of course, we're going to look at Jesus. So he did it perfectly in his setting. And so just kind of like look to the Holy Spirit to enlighten things that would become fitting and relevant for our application. But I would like that two things tonight. Like, we appreciate how Jesus discipled, and also we're inspired to disciple others ourselves. So we're going to go through quite a few, and I don't want to, spend an equal amount of time on each of these instances. But I'd like, before getting into some details, just to give a little bit of an overview. If I would say like, what would be like one pathway of looking at how Jesus disciples his disciples, it looks something like this. He called them and inspired them with a purpose. Then Jesus brought them alongside himself. He sometimes directly taught them. And then there were times when he like sent them out on their own without him. And they reported to him, and he kind of gave them feedback. And then, as he progressed, he involved them in his own miracles and his own service. He touches the leper by himself, but he feeds the 5,000 involving the disciples. Then there were times when he just like took them out to a place far away from crowds. And at those places, he asked them questions to let them know about the revelation that the Father was giving them. He trained them kind of on the inside. Sometimes he rebuked them and told them like, kind of like, that thought that you have is not of God. It's of man. And train them to like be away from that. And and then when the disciples were kind of asking questions about like how they should treat people who responded to Jesus, he just showed them their place. And then he questioned them, asked them questions, and those questions were a way that he taught them. He taught by questions. He kind of prepared them for failure and prophesied about their future trials and failure and restoration. And so, Peter failed. We know he denied him. But it's interesting, if you look at Jesus discipling, he prepared Peter for that. And That's so wise. He prayed for them, and not only for their faithfulness to stay in the Father's name, but also he prayed for their words, that their words would become effective, and even the people that received their words. And then he, tenderly restored them, and taught them like to love him, and gave them a commission, a purpose to shepherd his sheep. And if you put all that, we're going to get into this, but I wanted to kind of give an overview. And if you could imagine, like, if I had a younger brother right beside me and I did all of these things, oh my goodness, what a glorious pathway. And of course, I'm sinful, so we're all sinful. We're all short, and so we're kind of going to see like the perfect example. But I hope that as we go through these things, we'll see how Jesus really put the disciples in different settings, and through each of those settings, instilled something in them that would eventually allow them to serve him when they received the Spirit after he, was resurrected and eventually ascended, leaving them. So we're going to kind of go along that pathway, and we're going to start with, Jesus thought, like, I think this sentence is kind of like, or this phrase is kind of striking to me. In discipling, Jesus thought small. He didn't. We're not going to talk about the crowds, in this setting, except for the disciples' involvement in them. From John 2, it says his disciples believed in him. So he had this great big crowd of disciples. There were more than 12. More than 12. We know there were more than 12. And then Jesus, because of the will of the Father, didn't keep just that big crowd. In fact, in John 6, that crowd goes away. And then, but before that, Jesus goes up on a mountain and summoned those whom he himself wanted, and they came to him, and he appointed 12, just 12. Not 12,000, not 1,200, not 120, 12. And then I want us to like sear this next words of Mark 3 into our 3:14 into our minds, because this is what he wanted to do with the 12, so that they would be with him. Be with him. Do you know what he wanted the 12 to do? Like, be with me, see me, and know me. And then also, and that he could send them out, and to have authority to cast out demons. And so, when he was thinking of these 12, he's like, I just want them to be with me. And then that's a very important aspect to this whole process, what Jesus took. And then not only did he, reduce the crowd of disciples to the 12, but he also reduced the 12 to 3 in many instances. 6 days later, Jesus took with him, look at this, Peter, James, and John, and led them up on a high mountain by themselves. And as kind of an extra credit, if somebody wants to do an extra project, I think it would be interesting to see all the times Jesus just has those 3. And then what if you would do all the times Jesus just had those 3, and then look at what lessons did he give to just the 3? And I think something might pop out. It's like, wow, those are, and so Jesus in this whole process, like he's imparting himself to like, not 3,000, not 300, not 30, 3. And then you see in this discipling way, it's small. And wow, what if all of us in this Zoom call would have 3? We would think, oh, that's so small. That's so small. No. That is a life of discipling. And so the first thing that we're going to look at is like calling. And the scene, if you do like the second way of doing the harmony, before we get to this scene, this was Peter's experience of Jesus. In John chapter 1, he sees Jesus. Jesus changes his name. But I want to emphasize, it doesn't mean at that point Peter followed him all the time, but he knew him. And then again in Matthew chapter 3, I believe it's 3, then he sees Peter casting a net in the sea, and he says, "Come after me, and I will make you fishers of men." And then he followed him. But and a lot of harmonists go this way, or some harmonists go this way, that this scene here was after that, because it's so different. And then so like Peter was kind of following Jesus again, and then he kind of like went back to fishing. And the opening of this scene, you see like Jesus is speaking to the people, Peter is fishing, they're doing different things. and then and Peter was fishing all night, and then kind of tired, and Jesus was preaching to the people, and they were not together. And then Jesus, in his divine humanity, just goes to Peter's level and gets into his boat. And then he's just like, can you just put out from the land a little bit, and I'll finish preaching. So, Peter just listened to him while he was finishing his speech. And maybe he sent the crowd away. We don't know. Then he just turns to Peter and just says, "Simon, put out into the deep water and let down your nets for a catch." I want to emphasize this. How did Jesus get Peter, call Peter? He joined him in his occupation. And you just see something so fine with that. He didn't give him a hunting miracle, a woodworking miracle, which would be according to his background. He joined him in fishing. And then Simon answered, "Master, we worked hard all night and caught nothing, but I will do as you say and let down the nets." When they had done this, they enclosed a great quantity of fish, and their nets began to break. Peter saw, Jesus appeared to Peter. He invaded his life on his terms, in the terms of fishing, and then caused this miracle to happen. And then I really appreciate the next parts, because the miracle was not even the focus. The miracle here just kind of opened Peter's eyes, and he didn't say "Wow, Jesus, can you do that again? Then we'll be really wealthy. And if you do that 5 times, then we'll have enough money and we can definitely serve you. That's good." Or you just do this every other day, and then we can, make our living, and then we can serve you. No. The miracle was not the focus like that. The miracle opened Peter's eyes. And then when he saw that, he fell down at his feet saying, "Go away from me, Lord. I am a sinful man." And then he just realized and I think if you look at the setting, one of the possibilities that I sometimes think about, why would he say I'm a sinful man? It's just Jesus changed my name in John 1, and then I kind of left. And then Jesus called me again by the Sea of Galilee. And then I kind of wasn't there. And then he was doing his thing. And then I'm doing my thing. And then he just appeared again. And it's just oh, Lord, I can't really follow you. I'm just so me. And then the Lord just don't fear. Don't fear. Don't fear. From now on, you will be catching men. And Jesus, in this kind of calling, doesn't just say, "Come after me and I'll tell you what's going to happen." He doesn't say just "Come to another church meeting. Come to another church meeting." "Oh, now you go to 2 meetings a week. I want you to go to 3. Now you go to 4 meetings a week. I want you to go to 5. No, It's just, I'm going to give you a purpose. And you know what my purpose is? I say it in plain words. You will be catching men. Peter could grab hold. The miracle just kind of opened his eyes, and Peter could grab hold of these two things. Number one, I'm a sinful man. And number two, oh, I'm going to be catching men alive. I don't know what that means, but it's tasty. He instilled purpose in Peter at the very beginning of his calling. This is a picture of how the Lord began or continued discipling Peter. As we said, like the reason Jesus called the 12 was so that they would be with him. And if you look at how he discipled, he's like, just look at me. And for us, I don't want to apply too much, but if we can't say to people, like, look at me, and even with all my warts or with all my whatever problems, but like, look at me, I'm handling the Lord, then there's something short. They won't just do what you say and not what you do. And Jesus just really, he chose them to be with him. And look at this, like in Mark 5, this is raising the dead girl. He allowed no one to accompany him except Peter, James, and John. Just like these three, I just want you to see with me. And then they began laughing, putting them all out. He took along the child's father and mother and his own companions and entered the room where the child was. Taking the child by the hand, he said to her, Talitha cum, which translated means, little girl, I say to you, get up. And then, you know what was amazing? Like, there was a bedroom up there where he raised this girl from the dead. And only the father and mother and Peter, James, and John, the companions. And so if they ever in the future, where Jesus says, raise the dead, they just, I know. I've seen Jesus. We'll see when he sends them out. It's like, oh, what a groundwork he laid, bringing them alongside. And he just taught them. And I mentioned in our conversation last week, a little bit before the meeting, about how I feel like this generation, when I touch this generation, especially young men, I just have one word to describe them: lost. And and you know what they need? Teaching. And when he did the disciples, when he was with his disciples, he like taught them, like just said plain words. And he said, Jesus answered to them, to you it has been granted to know the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven, but to them it has not been granted. Then he, gave parables. A sower went out to sow, and he left the crowds and went into the house, and the disciples came to him and said, explain to us the parable of the tares of the field. So he just he just stopped and went through the explanation. It's like plain words, just plain words. He didn't say like, oh, you should have gotten that. No. He just like taught them in plain words. So, their time with Jesus was twofold. One is this: I see him raise the dead. And we were in that room. Whoa, that was amazing. And then number two, he just taught them in plain words. They didn't have to figure out everything. Sometimes they had to figure out things, but not all the time. And then comes the change. It's a real change. Look at this. These 12, Jesus sent out. Remember, he chose them to be with him, and so that he would send them out. And now this is a big deal, sending out, and just think about, like, if you're shepherding a brother or a sister, part of what you should do is can you just go out and preach the gospel? Can you go out and handle that church meeting? Can you go out and handle that Bible study? That would be like Jesus. But listen to what Jesus says. Don't go in the way of the Gentiles. Don't enter any city of the Samaritans. In other words, like, I'm telling you where to go. Rather, go to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. So the disciples are, the 12 apostles are like directed. As you go, preach, saying the kingdom of heavens is at hand. They're instructed. And then look at this in 8. Heal the sick, raise the dead, cleanse the lepers, cast out demons. Freely you receive, freely give. Don't acquire gold or silver or copper for your money belts. Can you imagine this? Okay, if I were Peter, James, and John, and I was with Jesus in the upper room, and there was a girl who had died, and I'd just be like, I'm so glad Jesus is here. Amen. Yes, Jesus. Hallelujah. You raised the dead. And now with this one, you know what he tells me, Peter? He tells me, Peter, or me, John, raise the dead. I'm like, what? This is how Jesus disciples his disciples. Can you go? Can you go? Well, I think sometimes our fault is we see people that we're discipling as too incapable. And you're saying like, well, yeah, Peter was really strong. Oh, look at Peter. Oh, no. Look at Peter. And Jesus, look at that Peter. And he's, look at Andrew. It's like, you should raise the dead. And I'm like, what? Yeah, just go. And he even told them kind of like how to handle things as you enter the house. Give your greeting. If the house is worthy, give your blessings of peace. But if it's not worthy, take back your blessings of peace. Whoever does not receive you nor heed your words as you go out of that house or that city, just shake the dust off your feet. Don't give them like a curse. Just shake the dust off your feet. But you kind of see Jesus was like training them in their going out to like, you really look for open doors. And then, you look for a house that would receive your blessing of peace. You go to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. And when you go there, you have this kind of authority. And what a way he trained. Okay. This is kind of skipping ahead to another sending when he sent the 70, but I wanted to give this as like an example of what happened, how Jesus gave feedback to them. The 70 returned with joy, saying, Lord, even the demons are subject to us in your name. And then he then gives them some feedback. He's like, do not rejoice in that the spirits are subject to you, but rejoice that your names are recorded in heaven. And then, you see how like when he was talking to them, it wasn't theoretical. He's not like, in the future, when I'm ascended, you're going to do this. No. He's like, can you go out, raise the dead now, cast out demons? And then they come back and then they have these kind of like, they were joyful over the wrong thing. And so Jesus even adjusts them like, no, you should be joyful that your names are written in heaven. Your names are in the book of life. That is what you should be happy about. And you can just see the disciples like internalizing this as best they could. But we see like the master at discipling. And then if I go that way, I won't finish. We talked about this a little bit last time. This was after he sent them out. It's the feeding of the 5,000. It's a famous story, and we touched this a little bit, but I just like to emphasize how much Jesus just involved his disciples in his serving. Even, he could have, the disciples said, we should send the crowds away because it's getting late and they haven't eaten. And then, Jesus doesn't take their suggestion and he says, they don't need to go away. You give them something to eat. And then it's like, he didn't need to say that. Like I said last week in reference to this, Jesus could have just said bread in stomachs and everyone would be full. Like it would just be automatic right away, right away. Like, and no one was hungry. Just there was bread there and it was right in their stomachs and everyone was satisfied. And during that whole time, they were kind of fasting, but full because of Jesus' miracle. But no, he didn't do it that way. But instead, he said, "You give them something to eat." And oh my goodness, what a discipling situation right here. If we were with a younger believer or a younger brother, a younger sister, and then we would just say this, can you just give them something to eat? I don't know if we would, we may not do that or whatever, but Jesus did. And then, and cause them to just think about like, what do we have? And then, we have here only 5 loaves and 2 fish. And then he said, bring them here to me. And and he just step by step brought his disciples through that of like, well, first thing you have to think about, like, what do you have? And then ordering the people to sit down in the grass, he took the 5 loaves and the 2 fish. And so it's like, what do you have? Just like give them to the Lord. Give those things that you have to the Lord, looking up towards heaven. And you just realize, like, wow, they would see Jesus like looking towards heaven. That's somehow there's something there. He's like a man in the flesh praying to God who is in heaven, looking towards heaven. And then he blessed the food, breaking the loaves. And then he didn't just like throw it to the groups of people that were sitting down on the grass. We know there were groups of 50. And no, he gave them to the disciples. And then the disciples gave them to the crowds. And they all ate and were satisfied. They picked up what was left over of the broken pieces, 12 full baskets. How fruitful was this lesson? I just can't imagine how fruitful this lesson was. Not basically like maybe not the next day, but how do we know when the apostles were in another situation? Peter had all these people just waiting for his word, and he's like, I don't have anything, and he just like gives what he has to the Lord, and then the words come out, and then there was something there where he just realized, like, I give it to the Lord, and then the Lord can bless and break it and give it back to me, and then I can give it to the disciples, or to the people. And you just realize, like, the wisdom of Jesus when he was discipling his disciples, sending them out on their own, then giving them, what should you be happy about? And then involving them in the service. And then, sometimes Jesus just focused, just seems like he just focused on those disciples. And one of the main places was when they came into the district of Caesarea Philippi. We don't know of any like miracle that he does or any great teaching he does. Maybe in this area, it's, if you look on a map, it's kind of like way up north, and so it's almost like he just wanted to take them out, take them away on a retreat, you could say. And then he doesn't say like, Father, give them revelation. He doesn't say like, I want to tell you exactly who I am. I am the Christ, the Son of the living God, but he asks questions. And I think one of you mentioned this, like, he asks questions. He doesn't like tell them what to think, but he asks questions. And who do people say that the Son of Man is? So then it's like directing Peter's thoughts, or the disciples' thoughts, like, okay, how should I answer this question? Some say John the Baptist, others Elijah, others Jeremiah, or one of the prophets. And then it's like, that's a really good question. but who do you say that I am? And then it's like that question is so much better than telling them what to think. And how many times do we tell people what to think other rather than asking them a question and risking it? It's a risk. Asking a question is a risk. It could go the wrong way. But when it goes the right way, it's so much more. Okay. Then Simon Peter answered, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." And then it was like, I don't know if Jesus knew about that before Peter spoke. You know, you could say maybe he did, probably he did. I hope I didn't say anything heretical. But he said this: "Blessed are you, Simon Barjona. Flesh and blood did not reveal this to you, but my Father who is in heaven." You know what Jesus did at that point? Like, taught Peter what it felt like, what it was to have a revelation of the Father uh, in who is in heaven. It's like Peter might have been like, "Wow, I had some sense or whatever," but then I couldn't really put it together. And then Jesus asked me a question: "Who do men say that I am?" And I think about it. And then he asked me another question: "Who do you say that I am?" And then it's like, and then who knows if Peter thought this, but Peter might be like, "I checked my gut, and I just said, like, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God." And then Peter, Jesus himself, standing right in front of him, confirmed, "My Father revealed that to you." Oh my goodness. Can we do this? Can we do this? What do you think? And then somebody says something, and then we confirm, "That's the Lord. That's the Lord. That wasn't a man's thought. That's the Lord." Or do we just say, like, "Hey, I'm the Christ, this guy's the Christ, the Son of the living God. We ruin everything." Jesus didn't do it that way. He took a risk. "Who do you say that I am?" That's risky right there. And then he got the Father's revelation. He's like, "Yes, my Father who is in heaven revealed that to you, Peter." And then Peter's maybe like, "Oh, I got it." And then Jesus builds on that. "I also say to you that you are Peter, and upon this rock," the rock of the revelation, the reality of Christ that Peter just saw, "I will build my church, and the gates of Hades shall not overpower it." Then that is when Jesus builds upon where Peter is at. He didn't say this after they caught the fish. No, 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 no. It wasn't time. No, 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 no. How did that have to happen? How did this have to happen? Jesus had to ask him the risky question: "Who do you say that I am?" And he could have totally flubbed it. And then maybe they would go to another mountain. I don't know what would happen, but they didn't flub it. But he says, like, "That's the Father. That's the Father." And then, by the way, not by the way, but if that's the Father, and then I am upon this rock, I'm going to build my church. And you are involved, Peter. You see how the Father and Son cooperate in discipling the Apostle Peter. And then at the right time, he could be shown the church. Today, I say the church a lot. I describe the church a lot. And then we should describe the church a lot. And then sometimes we should ask, like, why is there so little effect? Because there's so few questions. And it's not based on the Father's revelation. And then after the Father's revelation, then there's something that can be so ready to be received by Peter. Jesus disciples the disciples in the most marvelous way. Just a few verses later, Jesus began to show his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem, suffer many things from the elders, chief priests, and scribes, be killed, be raised up on the third day. Peter took him aside. And this is just an amazing verse. Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. Can you just imagine that? What an amazing verse. This is really amazing verse. Peter took Jesus aside and began to rebuke him, saying, "Oh, this shall never happen to you." He turned to Peter and he said, "Get behind me, Satan." Call Peter Satan. Whoa, serious. The one who just had the revelation calls him Satan. You see, now one person wrote, yeah, you see, even if you get the revelation, you're still fallible. You're not infallible. That's very true. That's very true. But you can see how like, and Jesus wasn't like, now my main disciple, one of the three is Satan. I got to start all over again. Rats. No, no. It's like yeah, just telling him, saying words. You're a stumbling block to me. You're not setting your mind on God's interest, but man's. And oh my goodness, what a lesson that would be to Peter. It's like, okay, I have a mind. And there are two places I can set my mind, man's interest and God's interest. And then Peter would just be like, okay, when I set it on man's interest, I get called Satan by the Lord. Maybe that's not so good. When I set it on God's interest, that's good. And then he might say, like, okay, what is God's interest? Oh, go to Jerusalem, suffer many things, be killed, be raised up on the third day. And just realize like there's something there. There's something there. And how few people, I've seen so many people follow the Lord for so long, and then they cannot take go to Jerusalem, suffer many things, be killed, and be raised up. They just can't take it. Why? They never learned this lesson. They never learned this lesson. Setting their mind on man's interest, but not God's. And then Jesus like poked this in the disciples, and what a safety, what a learning. Now for us to do this, it's not easy. It's not easy, and I would say mostly do the other stuff. Don't rebuke too much. You have to have the right heart in your own person, no anger, and just like a clear, calm instruction like Jesus gave. And then Peter like learned. Again, John and James, Master, we saw someone casting out demons in your name, and we tried to prevent him because he does not follow along with us. And then Jesus just tells him, don't hinder him. He was not against you, is for you. And then it's amazing that, I think Christians are divided now, but the division of followers of Jesus was even back then. It's just amazing because some people were casting out demons in Jesus' name and not following Jesus, even when Jesus was on the earth. Can you believe it? We're just divided all to our core, even from the very, very beginning. And then Jesus is like, don't hinder him. If he's not against us, he's for us, training. And then, it's like, go into some villages. This is verse 53. They didn't receive him because he was traveling towards Jerusalem. And then the disciples, James and John said this, do you want us to command fire to come down from heaven and consume them? And then he just rebuked them again. It's like, no. You don't know what kind of spirit you are. I didn't come to destroy, but to save. And let's just go to another village. Let's go to another village. He's just like adjusting them, just constant adjusting. And then I talked about this text last time, so I will kind of skip about this, skip the text. Jesus really prepares them for failure. And I like it. One time, I'll give a bad example. One time there was a new brother, and he was so zealous for the Lord, and then an older person said, "Oh, don't worry, you'll be zealous for a while, but it'll wear off. You'll get a no, that's not a preparation for failure. That's kind of like a that's kind of like a wet blanket. Jesus didn't do that. But he really showed them that there's Satan. And he demanded permission to sift you like wheat. And I just wonder what Peter and the disciples thought, like, when they heard this. It's like Jesus, like, Satan asked me, demanded permission to sift you like wheat. And then it's like, wow, this is real stuff. And it's important in discipling. It's very important to realize Satan is real. Two things that Christians get wrong about Satan. Sometimes Christians think he doesn't exist. That's wrong. He exists. Other times Christians think that everything is Satan. I get a cold, that's Satan. No, that's not, it's not like that either. But the right way to think about it is like there'll be times when you are sifted like wheat, and that's Satan. And then the Lord just says this: I've prayed for you that your faith may not fail. When once you have turned again, strengthen your brothers. Okay, lessons about this. Number one, it's not that Peter would not fail. It's his faith would not fail. I've prayed for you that your faith would not fail. And Jesus is just kind of training them. You know what is the powerful thing in you is faith. And it's interesting, like Peter in his epistle, he says that the proving of your faith more precious than gold, which perishes. Maybe, it's like he got this. He internalized this because he talks about the faith not failing. And that, it's like my faith won't fail. But you, however, will. And because once you have turned again, what does that mean? You've turned away. You turned away. So Peter has to internalize this. My faith won't fail, but I will turn away. And then Jesus says, like, but once you have turned again, he's just preparing. He's just preparing. Just preparing him. It's so good to prepare him. Once you have turned again, and then you know what you should do? You should strengthen or even restore your brothers. Once you have turned again, you should strengthen your brothers. And then so Peter would just say, like, wow, what a future. This is my future. I'm going to be going down the road and then sifted like wheat. And Jesus didn't say, get out of here, Satan. He told me, get behind me, Satan, when I was like Satan. But with this one, Jesus just like, okay, you can sift him, but I pray that his faith would be firm. And then he's going to fall. He's going to turn away. But then when he turns again, so Peter's like, wow, I'm going to be on a roller coaster, but it'll be okay. And my roller coaster will be this. When I've turned again, I can even strengthen my brothers. Like, wow, what a life. What an amazing life. And Jesus is just bringing them through such valuable lessons. And then, in this way, he doesn't get it. Like in 33, he says, but Lord, I am ready to go both to prison and to death with you. So he's like, he didn't get it, but he was taught it. Maybe that should be a lesson on discipling. People might not get it, but at least we can teach it. I don't know. Peter didn't get it, but he said to them, Peter, he said to Peter, I say to you, a rooster will not crow today until you have denied me 3 times that you know me. It's like shocking. Well, I really appreciate Jesus like just preparing Peter in a certain way. And what wisdom, what perfect like relatedness, and how much he knows what's in people. And then how much he wasn't like a zealot, like you got to be perfect, you got to stand strong, you got to name it and claim it. It was more like, no, your faith. I just prayed for your faith. And then you got to turn again and restore or strengthen. And yeah, you are going to fail. What wisdom by the Lord. Well, I really like this part. This is in John 17, and we haven't really touched this section. If you notice, we'll have one class on 14 through 17. But um, it's interesting prayers. I do not ask that you take them out of the world, but to keep them from the evil one. And I think it's like very interesting. Jesus is like, I don't want them to, you think about all the things in the world you have trouble, he says, I don't ask you to take them out of trouble, but keep them from the evil one. What an enlightened prayer. I sometimes think, oh, I just don't want that person to be influenced by the world in that way. I don't want them to be like in that setting. Jesus maybe doesn't pray that. I don't ask you to take them out of the world. Most of them will die, because of the world. But keep them from the evil one. That's a very, very good prayer. Keep them from the evil one. We should just model that prayer for our discipling, and then sanctify them in your truth. Your word is truth. I would want a person to be in the world, in this evil, broken world, but sanctified in the word, in the truth, and then kept from the evil one. Oh, what a, and sometimes I see a newer, younger brother or sister, and I just want to make their setting so perfect. I'd like to give them a person to shepherd who is so open, so ready, so that they can taste the joy of shepherding. And it's like, I don't really know if Jesus would pray that. It's like, I don't ask them to take them out of the world, but that you would keep them from the evil one. And then also, may they have a deeper and deeper relationship with you, with the truth, which is your word. And then he even prays for their fruitfulness. I don't ask on behalf of these alone, but for those also who believe in me through their word, and then, yeah, when we shepherd people, disciple people, we should pray for those who believe through their word, through their word. And you just realize like there's something so trusting that Jesus had about their futures, even though they were going to be sifted as wheat. There's going to be problems, there's going to be denial, but like, I pray even for those who would believe in me through their word. Just think of the paradox. Peter, you're going to deny me 3 times, after he says, no, I won't. I'll be so great. I'll even die with you. It's like, no, you're going to deny me 3 times. But then right before that, he's like, I pray for people who will believe through Peter's word. Jesus just saw it. He saw something so solid in these disciples, and he discipled the disciples in the most marvelous way. Then finally, after they had, gone fishing again, and and I don't want to get into the story again, but he asked them, this is after post resurrection, they went back fishing. Like I think King James says, Peter says, I go a fishing, something like that. And then there's a whole bunch of other apostles went fishing with them. And then there's another fishing miracle. And then Jesus just had bread and fish cooking on the shore, waiting for them. And he's like, come have breakfast. Come have breakfast. None of the disciples questioned him, ventured to question him, who are you? Knowing it was the Lord. So it's very, very interesting. It's just like, I know I'm wrong. Just come and eat. Like, can we have dinner like that? Somebody is like, I know I'm wrong. Just come and eat. And then it's like, no, no question. And then Jesus gave them bread and fish. And then when they had finished, he just asked Simon, and I won't go through the details. We might touch it later. Do you love me more than these? Do you love me? Simon, are you, where's your love? Do you love me? And he's like, yes, Lord, you know I love you. And there's a change in Greek words. We won't get to that. But Jesus was just again like stirring up his love and causing him to even wonder what is that love for the Lord, and then telling him how to respond to that love by saying this: tend my lambs. And then it goes, shepherd my sheep. And then finally, I believe it's like, feed my sheep. And he points Peter to his occupation. This is the final kind of shepherding. And you may think like, well, this should have been done at the beginning. Now, the Lord's almost going to ascend, but he had to do it again. He just had to do it again and come back and teach these lessons again. But oh my goodness, so many things were put into Peter. And and then that is what the Lord was bringing out. And so I hope we get like a picture. And I would say it's like the perfect shepherding. I don't know if I chose the exact right instances. There are more, definitely, but you can kind of see how he really works with them. And he lowered himself to their level and then got into their minds and taught them how to receive revelation or acknowledge revelation, how to think the right things. He prayed for them and for their future work. He taught them how to serve and then even restored them. He prepared them for failures and then participated in their restoration of service after their failures. And in the end, you just have to see Jesus is the most marvelous shepherd. He says, I am the good shepherd, and then says, the good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. And then you just think, oh, that happened at the cross. But actually, you realize he was a good shepherd the whole time. He's marvelous for us, and I hope this can fill our churches today. So I will stop there and